two of my favorite topics today, books and snacks. Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Heather, and as always, I'm reading with a vengeance, and I hope you are as well. If you're an OG watcher, thank you so much for coming back. If you're new to my channel, very warm welcome to you. I'm happy to have you here. I hope everybody is doing very well. How is everybody's reading doing? Today, I'm here with another book tag. This is the book snack tag, where we pair books and snacks. This was originated by Rosika over at the Midnight Reader. I'll link her channel down below. And I was tagged by the lovely Samantha over at Samantha Barthe or Barthe. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, Samantha, but thank you so much for the tag. I will link Samantha's channel also down below. Go check her out. So there are 9 prompts, and it's basically you take a snack genre, if you will, whether it be sweet or tart or juicy, that kind of genre, and you pair it with a book. I thought it was a fun idea and a fun tag, and I am a master snacker no matter what time of day, no matter what time of month. I love to snack. I have a sweet tooth like nobody's business. I can eat anything that's made out of chocolate. I have to have something sweet after every meal, unless that meal is sweet. My husband and I pair perfectly because his snack of choice is salty, so he always has to have like chips after something sweet, which is so bizarre to me. I always have to have something sweet after chips. Together we make a vicious circle. Anyways, let's get this tag started. So the first prompt is sweet. The chocolate chip cookie of books. What is a book that is warm-hearted, uplifting, and makes you less cynical about the world? The first book that pops up into mind is The Rosie Project by Graham Simsian. I love this book so much. I think there's 3 of them. I've read the first 2. This fellow is Don Tillman, and this takes place in Australia. Don is a genetics professor. He's wicked smart, but he is socially challenged. And I can't remember if they actually name it, but I believe he's on the spectrum. I think there's Asperger's there. I can't remember if it's actually named, but he is described as socially challenged, and he doesn't quite respond to social cues. He can count all of his friends on one hand, but when a good friend says that he would make a good husband for whatever reason, I think he's a good cook, and he keeps things clean and neat, and he's got everything in order. He sets himself up on this project of finding the perfect wife. And of course, he has this list of criteria that she must follow him. She's got to be punctual, she's got to be neat and clean, and all of these things. And of course, the perfect person that he comes across, Rosie, is far from all of these things, but for some reason, Don is drawn to her. And it's just a heartwarming story about tolerance and love, human flaws that are sometimes endearing. I remember laughing out loud. I know I listened to this one, and it was just a cute, funny, heartwarming story. The next prompt is salty, inherently craveable. Pick a book or series that you couldn't stop reading or reaching for. The first book that comes to mind is The Husband's Secret by Liane Moriarty. I've mentioned this book before. This remains my favorite of this author. I've read probably 4 or 5 from this author, and I've enjoyed them all, but none of them have met the standard of The Husband's Secret. I'm pretty sure I've told this story before, but I remember I listened to this book as well, and I remember my husband and I were training for like a half marathon, and we were on one of our long runs, and we're running along, and I'm listening to my book as we run, and there came to be this part in the book where I literally gasped out loud, and my husband thought I was having some kind of episode during this run, and he's like, "What's the matter?" And I'm like, "Oh no, it's just my book." And of course he rolls his eyes, and we continue running. So this book meets this prompt for me in that I couldn't stop listening to it. It was so engaging, but it wasn't your typical thriller where that's the genre you think of, that is just a page turner and you can't put it down. There was just something about this story. This, funnily enough, also takes place in Australia. And I believe you're following 3 different sets of characters that are connected in some way. But it basically starts off with Cecilia, who comes across a letter that says, only read upon my death. And it was written by her husband, but her husband is away on a business trip. He begs her, please don't read it. But of course she does. And it includes a secret from his past. And the secret may destroy not only his life, but Cecilia's as well. And it involves a mystery that happened years before, and it's just super engaging and compelling, and I absolutely love the story. And it's the one that just led me to be such a huge Liane Moriarty fan. The next prompt is cheesy. Like Cheeto dust, you can't escape the cheese. Pick a book that you love because of or in spite of its cheesiness. I'm gonna have to go with Twilight and the Twilight series. So I apologize to fans of Twilight. I'm a fan of Twilight too, but you can't deny it's pretty cheesy. Vampires who sparkle, come on. I discovered this series when I was walking through Barnes & Noble, and it was when I believe the third one had come out. So there was this big display of the third book. It had this beautiful, compelling cover, made me pick it up, and I'm like, oh my God, this looks interesting. And then I discovered, I'm like, oh, this is a third in the series. And so I decided to start the series from the beginning, and I absolutely loved the series. I loved reading those books. I don't know what it was, and I was in my 30s, and I'm pretty sure you can call them young adult books, and I found them completely compelling. I wasn't a fan of the movies. I thought the only character they did well in casting was Jacob, which, by the way, I was Team Jacob all the way through the books and the movies. Cheesy to the core, but I love them anyway. The next prompt is deep fried. You bit too soon into the hot batter and got burned. Pick a book that hurt to read. Oh, okay. So I know I've talked about this book before. I have to choose Modoc, The True Story of the Greatest Elephant That Ever Lived by Ralph Helfer. This tells the story of a young boy who grew up in a small German circus town. He kind of grew up with one of the circus elephants, and they become friends. Of course, through life, they become separated as the boy grows up to be a man. He goes on to live his life, and the elephant is shipped off to other endeavors, and it tells the story of the horrible things that elephants go through, being circus elephants, basically made to work their entire lives. So much of this story is heartbreaking. I'm pretty sure I sobbed at least 2 times reading this book, but it is so heartwarming and beautiful. It's one of my favorite books of all time. As you know, if you've watched my videos before, you know I am a sucker for stories about the relationship between humans and animals, and this book captures that perfectly. Modoc. Yes, it definitely hurt to read this one. It broke my heart into a million pieces, but it did put it back together, and I love Modoc. The next prompt is ice cold. Sometimes the snack you want can only come from the deep freezer. Pick a book that transports you to a cold place. The first one that comes to mind is The Snowman by Jo Nesbø. This is part of the Harry Hole series, which I really, really enjoy. I've only read the 1, or have I read 2? Nope, I've only read the 1, and it was the 7th in the series, but you don't have to read them in order to really enjoy them. And I think I haven't read the first one yet, which is called The Bat, because I think I've had a really hard time trying to find that one. Anyways, it is a detective series that takes place in Oslo. And of course, per the title, The Snowman, it makes me think of snow and cold weather. But basically this one follows Harry Hole investigating a series of murders where before the murderer strikes, he, I believe, builds I can't remember if it was before or right after he murders someone, he builds a snowman in like their front yard and leaves an item of clothing on it. So it's kind of like his signature is to build the snowman near the victim. I think the writing is really good, and I also really enjoy a story that takes place in a foreign country, specifically a police procedural that takes place in another country, because I like to see how things are different than they are in the justice system and the police world than from the United States. and I found this one really engaging. I will continue with the series at some point, but I want to start with the first one, even though I know I don't have to. But as soon as I find the first one, I will start the series from the beginning. The next prompt is sour. Some things are too sour to keep a straight face. Pick a book that made you make faces while you were reading. The book that comes to mind is Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bastarrica. This is translated from the Spanish. Bastarrica, I believe, is Argentinian. I think I remember writing in my review that this was like a literary car accident. You can't help but look. You don't want to, but you can't help yourself. This book has been talked a lot about on Booktube, so you probably already know, but it is basically takes place in a world where all animal meat is now poisonous to humans. So an industry comes about where eating human flesh becomes legal, and it becomes a huge industry. And there's a really, really good story in this book. It follows Marcus, who works at like a local processing plant, and he struggles. He is conflicted with his business, but he has to make a living. His wife has left him. His father is struggling with dementia, and he's just got all this conflict in his life. And it's a fascinating story, but there are parts in here where you are taken on a tour of some of these slaughterhouses, and yeah, I couldn't help it. The faces I made were utter horror and disgust, but I really, as a vegetarian, I really appreciated this story. The author I found, after I finished this book, I researched her and I found out she's a vegetarian as well. And so she's kind of making a statement about this. And so I really appreciated the message that the author sent in this book. Just be cautious when you read it, because there are some quite disturbing scenes. And that's when I was making my, I think, sour faces when I was reading it. The next prompt is the healthy snack. Who wants a healthy snack? You picked this up because it was good for you. Pick a book that you read to improve yourself in some way. I don't read a whole lot of self-improvement books. I don't poo-poo them either. I think there's a lot of good ones out there that do a lot of people good. But I will say, many years ago, I did battle with some depression, and I remember going to kind of a group therapy session, and someone recommended a book that she read that really helped her, and it was a unique book in the whole self-improvement in the way that it was formatted. It's called The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. I think the subtitle is Having the Life You Want by Being Present to the Life You Have. And the way you read it, you read one page every day, and there's 365 pages. So in theory, you're reading this book for a year, reading one page at a time, and each page has either a poem or just a passage or a motivational phrase or something to make you think about a certain topic for the day, or maybe gives you a kind of an assignment for the day of things to think about. And it encourages you to take one day at a time and kind of push all the garbage that comes down in your mind sometimes, and think about the things that are important in life. And I found it extremely helpful. And I'm not saying that this book drew me out of my depression, but it was a component of what helped me. And I couldn't recommend it enough. Even if you're not dealing with depression or anxiety or anything like that, it really is a good way to ground yourself and kind of declutter your mind. I will always recommend this book. And I think I ended up borrowing this book at the time, and I don't know why I don't have my own copy now, but this video is a reminder to me that I think I want my own copy that I have for my library. Yes, if this sounds like something that would be helpful to you, I definitely recommend it. Next prompt is juicy. Like an orange or a watermelon, some snacks have plenty of pieces to share. Pick a book that is profoundly shareable, a book you want others to read. Well, of course, the book that I want everybody to read is my favorite from 2021, and that is Boy's Life by Robert McGammon. This is another one of those books that kind of ticks all the boxes for me. It's historical fiction. It's got a mystery in it. There's a thriller element. There's a little bit of magical realism. It takes place in the South. It's from the point of view of a 12-year-old boy, so it's kind of coming of age. It takes place in the 60s. I love this book so much. It opens up where you're following Corey. He's a 12-year-old boy in Zephyr, Alabama, and he's on in a truck with his father who delivers milk. Because all the people in this small town, they either work for the paper mill or they work for the dairy. And his father works for the dairy delivering milk. They're on their delivery route very early in the morning when all of a sudden this car comes tearing across the road in front of them and into the lake. And they pull over, and Corey's father hops out and jumps in the lake to try to save this man from drowning. And it turns out this man is not only naked in the driver's seat, but he's been beaten up and he's handcuffed to the steering wheel. His father can't save him. The car goes down. The lake is too deep. It's 1960 something. They don't have any means to get the car out from the bottom of the lake. Nobody knows who this guy was who was in the car. There was no identity, and it's this mystery. That's how the story starts, and Corey is determined to find out who this guy was, who murdered him, why, and he goes on this just adventure, but at the same time, you're also just following him as this 12-year-old boy living a life in this small town with his folks. And I absolutely love this book. Please read it. And the final prompt in this tag is the snack pack. Everyone wins when you swap and share your snacks. So I'm going to tag a few people here. Absolutely no pressure to do this tag. And if you've already done this tag, I apologize. But the people that I would love to see do this tag: Michelle at Books Cause Insomnia, Lauren at Paperback Empire, Gloria at Gloria Z. Thompson, and Jade at Boho Bookworm. These are all lovely, lovely booktubers that I watch on the regular. If you haven't watched their channel, please go check them out. I will link their channels down below. Ladies, again, no pressure, but I would love to see your answers. And that is it for the book snack tag. I hope you enjoyed it. Have you read any of these books? What books popped up into your head for each of these prompts? What is your go-to snack? I would love to hear about them, or you can just say hi. Please feel free to comment down in the doodly-doo. And as always, I hope you found something here that piqued your interest. If you've read some of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're interested in reading these books and you end up picking them up because of this video, I would love to hear about it. If you're still watching at this point, please consider giving that like button a boop, and a subscribe would be wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.